take this card. And on it, I want you to finish this sentence for me. On Troost, I discovered my...
Is there strength to be found on Troost Avenue? To answer that, let's go back and look at how Troost became what it is today. Before the founding of the United States, this area was in the heart of the Osage Nation. Troost was a trail where the Osage peoples would take their canoes to the Missouri River. But in 1808, not knowing what the settlers intended to do, the Osage Nation transferred their land to the United States for pennies on the dollar. In the mid-1800s, 31st and Troost bordered the 65-acre Porter Plantation, where Reverend James Porter and his family owned between 40 and 100 slaves. Because this land was so well cultivated by the Porter slaves, after the Civil War, it became prime real estate. From 25th to Linwood along Troost were some of the most beautiful and elegant homes in Kansas City. It was known as Millionaire's Row. The boom that was the 1870s and 80s was the bust of the 1890s, and a 10 to 15 year depression set in. But life began to come back to this area when immigrant families from the Greek community, the Jewish community, and others moved here and opened businesses. It was very diverse, with 186 businesses within just 2 city blocks. In 1954, the desegregation of schools prompted some pretty dramatic changes in our city. Fueled by discrimination, a collaboration took place. Real estate companies encouraged white people to move to the new and beautiful suburbs. Neighborhood associations began blocking black families and others from moving to certain areas. Banks left minority neighborhoods, and Troost became the boundary line for school districts. By the 1980s, when Reconciliation Services was just starting to work in this area, Troost had become the economic and racial dividing line of our city. But the story doesn't end there.
Who are you? What is your name? Where do you live?
My name is John Kreisbergs.
Dina Gardner.
Monica Henderson.
Michaela Albert.
My name is Cassandra.
I live within a mile of Reconciliation Services.
Blue Springs, Missouri.
Raytown, Missouri.
Off of Ward Parkway, just south of the plaza.
You know, Troost was one of those places that you just always heard about, that it wasn't the safest place.
To me, I think I was rather, I don't want to say intimidated, but I didn't really know what to expect when we walked in.
I grew up east of Troost. I was raised by my great-grandmother. We were just really poor.
We were on the street for about 3 or 4 months.
I was locked up for a little while, and I got out in 2015, and I was walking through 31st Street.
And it was very, very hard. You were very defensive. You didn't trust anybody. You were always looking over your shoulder. You were always worried about what was going to happen next.
So when I got in the SNAP class, I heard a lot of other girls speak about their pain and what they was going through. And so I decided to open up and tell a little bit of my testimony.
My first impressions of Reconciliation Services were through my wife, who got very involved with art therapy. My wife's an art teacher.
But the minute I walked in the door, there was a sense of, this is where I needed to be.
I work behind the desk, so I'm the first point of contact generally for the public.
We were trying to figure out where to go eat for a Friday night, and just so happens that my now husband, he remembered that Reconciliation Services did their Friday night meal.
And I didn't have to have nobody to say they don't want to listen no more. They don't want to hear you no more. Sylvia wasn't like that. Sylvia, oh, she opened up her heart and she said it was okay.
I think what Reconciliation Services does for me is this: it translates what it means to be part of a community in action.
I'm not so far away from our clients that I can't see the struggle, relate to it, and love them.
When we would turn around and we would come in here, it was like all the stress, all the weight, all the shields and everything else that we had put up just because we had to, were gone.
It's family. And it's not just the family of volunteers and the staff. It's a family of people.
You know, working for RS has allowed me to connect with the little girl that I sometimes forget about.
I just see that corner of 31st and Troost not only being a gathering place, but a beacon of hope for so many in our community.
To know that I wasn't the only one, that I do have a life, that I do have a chance. I let go, I'm free.
Since the beginning, our vision has been to transform Troost from a dividing line into a gathering place of hope and healing for everyone. In Dutch, the word Troost means comfort, and that's how we see it here. It's a place where people can begin to address their disparities, begin to address issues of celebrating
diversity, that it began to cause economic impact that was enabling the entire city to thrive. So as we stop and we reflect upon the dividing line, if we begin to work together towards really beginning to work at this as individuals and as working as this as agencies and businesses and the community, we can begin to have this feeling of village that transcends any particular group so that all the ships rise together.
So every single person who comes to RS, who comes to Troost, can find their value, their worth, their strength, and together we can thrive as a neighborhood, as a city, and even as a nation.